of bans coming through really quick for the side of Impunity. Rhyme almost banned out immediately. As for the side of Nebulae, they might just want to think for the Black Feather ban because you don't really want to quite give it over to the side of Impunity, which I'm sure can use to its fullest and bestest extent.
Yeah, so I think Black Feather definitely makes quite a lot of sense for them to ban away. You don't want to leave it over to B-side unless you have a really good counterpick to that ready to try for yourself. So I think, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They could also ban Arden. We know Arden will probably be first pick now. The Black Feather has been banned away, so that could have been a good ban. And Lyra's also another good hero, but we've seen Grace work really well with the Black Feather, so maybe that will be a higher priority. And we've seen the Churnwalker! Finally, I get to see Churnwalker in Southeast Asia. This is going to be exciting. He's so fun to watch. So fun to cast as well. You're going to have a joy with Churnwalker landing those chains, and I think that they're not ready for that. What do you counter Churnwalker with? The answer is poke generally. Sometimes you can try melee against him, but I'm sure these teams are going to have a bit of trouble trying to play against this Churnwalker.
I'm already supporting Impunity. I'm already all for Impunity. I'm just rooting for them now to win with this Churnwalker pickup themselves. But for the side of Nebulae, we will be seeing an Arden being picked and a Reza being banned out. As we all know, Reza has been relatively strong in the current meta, can burst down any squishies, to be honest. And in fact, Reza just does well because of the Aftershock buff anyway, so squishy or not. But we spoke about, the item Aftershock and Reza in general off stream, and we did mention that Reza, very similar to that Akoshka, do not fall out as bad, but do fall out in terms of damage into that of the late game. However, Impunity will ban out that Taka.
Yeah, Impunity's clearly thinking that Taka is a really good Reza counter, really good Churnwalker counter. I guess that kind of makes sense because if you have a Taka and Churnwalker's trying to land those chains, it's really hard. He can Kaisen over one chain, Exvetsu, he's going to dodge the next one, he gets loads of movement speed. It's really tough to land chains on Taka, so that does make sense. Alpha picked up, that's just a strong pick for Nebulae. It's not necessarily a Churnwalker counter, there's no reason why Alpha would do particularly well against Churnwalker. Now, what comp are they going to round the struggle out with? There's a lot of things they could do. Vox was always seen as really good with Churn because you get reflect damage on his basic attacks and on his resonance bounces, so it's just constant ticking of damage from that Vox if everyone's in a full team fight. So that could work out well against this Alpha. They could go something like a Crawl, would work well. The Spectral Smite does well with Churn's chains. If you get Smite on someone, it will chain through, deal 30% damage to everyone else that is chained. So I think that could be a good thing, but really interested to see what kind of composition they want to run with this Churn.
Yep, Impunity in the past, in 2.8, they are known to run double poke comp, right? And I'm smiling, I'm grinning once again. We will be seeing a Saw coming through from Impunity. I was thinking double poke as well. Maybe a Castro and a Mage, but we all know Mage has not quite been in matters anymore. But I'm quite happy to see the Saw coming out. Very consistent damage. And as we all know, one of the biggest weakness of Saw as compared to the other heroes is that the lack of AoE, barring suppressing fire. So, whoa! So, very interesting team comps coming through from Impunity. So, Churnwalker can basically dissipate the damage, or rather distribute the damage throughout the entirety of Nebulae as long as Saw just target one. And then we have Petal as well. I'm not surprised if we will be seeing a CP Saw.
Really? I would have expected a CP Petal just because it's way more meta, but hey, I've been surprised before. We might be surprised again with the CP Saw, and thinking about it with Churnwalker, it makes so much more sense. CP Petal is terrible with Churnwalker. It just doesn't work, really. Petal's all about kiting away. Churnwalker gets those chains, and then the minion damage, I guess it reflects through the chains, but it's not going to be that much because Petal's really about damage over time, so people can just break the chains. It's not going to be that effective. Whereas a CP Saw, massive burst damage, has a slightly weak early game, but if he gets invaded and Churnwalker manages to get some chains, then that little bit of damage from Saw will be amplified, and the Rhodey run can probably get a triple kill. If one target is low, Saw gets like 1,000 execute into the later part of the game on CP. That scales that reflex about 400 damage onto the other heroes, which is pretty significant for one ability. So I would love to see a CP Saw with a Weapon Lane Petal. Weapon Petal will work similar to Weapon Saw in terms of she jumps in, gets some damage, Churnwalker reflects it through his chains, and that's going to be really interesting to see what they decide to go for. So they have two options, either a late game scaling Weapon Petal CP Saw or an early game pressure Weapon Saw CP Petal. So I'm really excited to see what they're going to decide to go with.
I mean, it is all up in the clouds now. No one quite know what Impunity will pull off. But I'm with you. I really want to see a CP Saw just for that execute damage, that dank shank damage that will be coming up from him in that late game. And one thing about CP Saw, right? I know, very unpopular opinion, but Aftershock on CP Saw. Very, very good, very bursty, but how will CP Saw actually do against an alpha is another question as well. And CP Saw being so without mobility, barring those shanks, you will have a hard time going up against that of Scarf that can just put a goop down and escape path, so that when you goes in for a shank, when you roll backwards, you get slowed down and you'll be easily targeted by alpha.
It does take quite a bit of skill to land that goop in the right place, because once Saw shanks, he does then have quite a lot of movement speed, which is because he loses all of his stacks of spin up, and so he's really easy to take down once he's used his suppressing fire. But using suppressing fire does reset the cooldown of his roadie run, so that really shouldn't be too much of a problem for Saw to keep mobile. But we're going to have to wait and see what these teams are going to go for. Let us know in the chat if it's Impunity, if you favour the Churnwalker, if you're hyped to see Churnwalker for the first time in Southeast Asia competitive Vainglory 8, and if you think the Saw and Petal are going to win it out, or if you think Nebulae can turn this game, can win this game and start the series off for them. We are now loading into the Halcyon Fold for the first game of the last series, and casting this game, it will be Luxuria and Iroquest Jewel. Take it away.
Thank you, Mini Mitre and Luxuria once again for a draft, and once again we will see the Saw pickup, this time on the side of Impunity and alongside the Churnwalker, which I heard your guys' reaction to when that's picked up. Just quite surprising to finally see it being played in the VG8. I think we might have seen it once before, maybe in the Challengers, if I'm not wrong, but we will see Quartervore on that Churnwalker for today. And with that, I think looking at both these drafts, that I think they both did well for themselves. Nebulae did a good job to respond to the Saw pickup, and for the side of, I guess, Impunity, off the back of that Churnwalker pickup, picking up the Saw, and the Petal isn't too bad either. And we will have to wait to see whether it's going to be the CP Saw or the CP Petal, as they both have weapon blades at the start. But DefQ so low early on, uses that potion, but the Torment gonna pull Doubtfire back, and they're gonna be able to secure the first blood on the side of Impunity.
Yep, what I'm expecting now, just looking at how Blue City is building, and yep, Blue City definitely weapon power, and DefQ, I'm not surprised at all if DefQ would just is just buying that weapon blade for that early farm clear, just for the early laning phase, and we'll port back to try to get the CP items, because that is what that we see with Sky as well. Sky will buy an early weapon blade just for the clear if he's placed in that of the jungle in the lane. But now DefQ, it is quite a big question. I must say, whether or not we will be seeing a CP Saw, but I'm really excited. I just want to see that CP Saw. But once again, mentioned up against a Scarf, it will be very, very difficult for the side of Impunity in that early game.
Yep, and we do see Iron Cube Die catching out Blue City in this jungle, or it could be the other way around. Is Doubtfire going to use the Vanguard to get them out there? Iron Cube Die, as most alphas would, shouldn't be looking for the fights, I should say, until they get that Aftershock at least. But it's a bit of trouble for the side of Nebulae, as they're going to have to rotate up to defend this initial turret from the onslaught of Impunity. But Quartervore already fairly low. There's going to be the Prime Directive actually missing, and now allowing the side of Impunity to just back off safely.
Yep, double CP coming out from the side of Nebulae. we have spoken about this before, and double CP works in certain conditions, but with how Aegis is generally built in, a lot of heroes, and there you go, there you have it, the CP Saw, the Dank Shank, like Minimizer said, will just blow up the allies, blow up everyone once the Saw, or rather the Shank comes through. So I'm all for this. I'm all for Impunity. Impunity will struggle in the early game. We mentioned it while we are desking, while we are doing the analysis for this draft. Impunity definitely will suffer, but we do see the amount of damage coming through from that Shank.
Yep, however, Doubtfire with that Vanguard up will be alright. Quartervore going in deep into the enemy jungle alongside Blue City, who's going to be able to clear those backs, and Quartervore just buying up time really with those chains, and is going to get hit by the Prime Directive. Needs to be careful as Blue City not nearby, and we saw Trophies picking up that initial turret, not something you usually see against a Saw, but in this case, because of a CP Saw pickup, they are able to do so. And Trophies, DefQ both so very low. Vesmer suppressing fire just misses. Trophies needs to be careful of Blue City coming up to lane for the gank. There's going to be the Vanguard to get them out of their life, and Blue City might fall instead to Iron die on that Alpha. Core charge is up, the Prime Directive in another second, but they're not going to follow through with it. And instead, both laners able to get back to base safely.
Yep, DefQ probably going for the Eve of Harvest as first item on Saw. I'm not sure what to feel about that. Usually as a jungle CP, so another very, not well like opinion, minority opinion almost, is that the jungle CP Saw, it works decently well. We've seen some pro players actually running it, granted not in Southeast Asia, but the aftershock would generally be prioritized as the first item because your Shank is considered a basic attack, so it does proc aftershock once you click onto the Shank. Quartervore now maybe looking for something, chain onto Doubtfire, but the entirety of Impunity maybe just looking to reset.
We gets the chain onto Trophies, and I Angry You Die. And now we're going to have to be looking for the side of Impunity. How are they really going to be able to push this initial turret? They lost their first one so early on, and in personal opinion, sorry to crush Minimiter's dreams of a CP Dank Shank going on to that of a triple chained up enemy and then gain the possible triple kill. I would have preferred for the side of Impunity, at least for a bit more of win conditions, for them to have either gone double weapon power with the weapon power pedal alongside weapon power Saw, or just have weapon power Saw and possibly a CP pedal. I think would have worked out a lot better for them in my opinion, but we'll have to see how well the CP Saw can scale up. I just don't think it's such... Weapon power Saw is in the meta right now, but I don't see a place for CP Saw in my opinion.
Well, the issue is that, CP Saw works very well with Churn Walker, CP Petal doesn't. So I guess that is where, the analysis came from, whether or not to run the CP Saw or the CP Petal, because and Impunity will have to agree. So the weapon Petal is just so much stronger in the current game as compared to a CP Petal. But then, as you mentioned, right, it is kind of a dilemma whether or not to put one on CP or one on the weapon carry because of how strong they are as compared to each other, right? This weapon Saw stronger than a CP Saw in the early game. Weapon Petal stronger in the late game as compared to a CP Petal. So I guess there are pros and cons. There's give and take when you do go in for that CP Saw build. Your basic attacks will do nothing, but a fight may just break up.
Blue City using the trampoline to get closer to Iron Die. The termination protocol, and they're going to miss for Prime Directive, so forced into the infinite reboot stage early on. You see Saw going in there with the Mad Cannon doing a lot of damage. Iron Die more than likely going to fall, but Quartervore might be the first. There's the Fountain used for the side of Impunity, however, to keep him alive, and Petal does have the trampoline available but doesn't really want to jump away from their team just so yet. And we see Trophies still fairly healthy in that front line, has the Vanguard coming out from Doubtfire on that Arden, so that's going to help out there. Iron diving in with the Prime Directive, and is going to get taken down. The suppressing fire slowed them enough that Blue City could catch up to them, pick up a kill, and now 2-0 for the side of Impunity as they push on to this initial turret, but Scarf doing a great job of laying down the goop with the Spitfire, and DefQ nowhere to run really. Those suppressing fires, however, in this case, CP going to do a bit more damage.
And with that Eve of Harvest, it helps out with that sustain. But like mentioned, if he has he's going for the overdrive on the suppressing fire, thus it kind of explains why that Eve of Harvest is being picked up. Because if he just decided to just go for the the tank shank, the massive damage coming through from those shanks, from those roadie runs, then definitely the Aftershock into Shatterglass or Aftershock into Eve of Harvest will just prove better as compared to the current build. But what we are seeing right now, maybe DefQ will play the CP Saw very similar to that of Weapon Saw, suppressing fire into Mad Cannons, trying to burst the enemies down as fast as possible, rather than running the Assassin Saw build that we are so commonly, or we are so accustomed to seeing when we do see a CP Saw coming through.
Yep, and other than the fact that you did mention Pedal runs well into the late game on Weapon Pedal, it could be that for the side of Impunity, another factor going for them is actually the fact they only have to build into that Aegis, which we could already see a fair bit of shield on the side of Impunity, knowing that they're going against that double CP comp. So it does lack out for Nebulae that even if they're able to make it to the late game, or have a decent early game towards the late game, there's something going against them and could really hurt them in the long run, and is why you usually don't go the double weapon or double CP. But as I mentioned before, a double weapon could have worked out for Impunity just because of that early game they would have with the Saw, and then this Pedal doing well into the mid to late. Now they're going to work on this initial turret, but Iron Gudai diving in and just countering them out. There's going to be the Gauntlet pushing them back. Spitfire lands, Fountain used for the side of Impunity, but Iron Gudai put into that recall state is going to have to be careful here as we see Impunity planning their siege. I thought Nebulae would have a much good defense against this, but with the Prime Directive missing, they're going to be in a bit of trouble, and DefQ following through for the shank does land onto Doubtfire, maybe not the right target, and Blue City fairly low in the front lines here. Both teams have used that Fountain, so just having to look for a back out from the side of Impunity.
Yep, but we do see, as we mentioned before, for a Churn Walker to just, work and be used to its fullest extent, he needs to land those hook and chains. If he misses even one in a big team fight, then he will not be able to survive. The damage wouldn't be distributed, and it will just be, for naught that, you have the Churn Walker. Because Churn Walker, his entire kit is basically, and is generally all about landing those hooks and chains. If you do not, then it will be pointless to just use Churn Walker. A Finn would have worked so much better if you just want to land on one person and then pull that person in. So when it comes into the late game, we are now starting to slip into the mid game. But when it does come into the late game, Quartervore, there will be a lot of pressure on this Churn Walker, and whether or not Quartervore can just land those massive hooks onto his enemies, and then use Torment to just pull them in, and then with the ultimate just stun, land a 3-man stun or something along those lines, and just have damage distributed to all 3 members of the side of Nebulae.
Yeah, a lot of these situations, it seems that Quartervore targets just walk out of his reach, and they're not really finding the fights close enough to really put that to use. I haven't even seen Quartervore be able to use his ultimate in a fight just yet. So we will have to see what happens here. Iron Gudai jumping onto Blue City. They should be able to take them down. They have the damage to do so. Pedal going to be able to pick up that kill. But you could see Mad Cat. And you can imagine how much better off it would be for the side of Impunity if those hook and chains, which we see now being used in conjunction with the Trespass, stun up Truffes, who's on that backline going so very low, but Doubtfire going to use the Gauntlet defensively to make sure they get out there. As I was saying that, if DefQ was able to land the Mad Cannon onto chained up targets, it would deal so much more and be so much more effective. However, right now they're just picking up on the mistakes of Iron Gudai diving in and getting caught out alone.
Yep, and I think that is what Impunity really wants to go for, the Mad Cannon damage rather than the Shank damage that I've been talking about, and I guess that the mentality that a Shank is does so much damage is probably from the promo video for Chan Walker. Let's all be honest. I think it's a hero spotlight for Chan Walker, right? So Saw Wen goes in with the Shank, with the Roadie Run Shank on a minion, but then because the hook it's on something else, and the person just blew up. The hero just blew up, and I guess that is what that we are aiming for to see. But what Impunity have in mind is just utilizing fully this Mad Cannon and the suppressing fire. So as we can tell, one suppressing fire just almost clearing out the entire lane and just resetting a Roadie Run immediately afterwards. So that is something that maybe the side of Nebulae has to make full use of. Maybe Delphire try to just stun DevQ on that Saw out of that suppressing fire with that gauntlet. That is a possibility. If not, then just dive on very, very hard for the CP Saw because he's just so immobile without those Roadie Runs.
Yep, and we do see Truffy's pushing in, gets caught up in the initial hook, but manages to lose it. Quartervore has a chance to go in the trap pass, manages to land the stun, going low fairly early on. Peril's going to be up to pick up that kill. Aaron Gudai trying to jump onto DefQ, but gets taken out early and should be shut down before they get the infinite reboot. Now Impunity's comp starting to come online into those team fights, and there's really nothing beside of, I guess, Nebulae can do to go in those if Delphire isn't going to be willing to use the gauntlets to engage.
Yep, Delphire has been really, really passive with the use of this gauntlet, not trying to use it aggressively like we commonly see when Arden is being played. Gold Mine will be secured by Impunity, pushing the gold lead up into the 7,000 or 6,000 plus, and it just proving that this comp kind of works. But I've yet to see how Chan Walker plays into this particular comp, or how a CP Saw actually plays into this particular comp. What I'm basically seeing in a lot of team fights, it is just Blue City with the massive amount of damage coming through from the Sora Blade and Tornado Trigger, and all DevQ is really doing is just suppressing fire, hitting the Mad Cannon, trying to get all the charges of the Mad Cannon up, and then suppressing fire, but cannot quite find the engage potential. Yes, I mean, I have to agree, all three members of Impunity, they have got all 5 kills. They have 100% kill participation, but it's only 5 kills right now, and DevQ half the time he's only providing the suppressing fire as a form of CC rather than a kill.
Yeah, and with that, we do see Nebulae going back to this lane once again, but they're going to get caught out by Impunity as we see DefQ picking up that Crystal Power Infusion. Could be the go sign for them. DefQ, however, moving up to that lane first to lay down the suppressing fire, and as you mentioned before, just clear out most of that wave with just one suppressing fire. Blue City now, we've also got to look over to doing a lot of damage in that previous fight, especially right off the back of Trespass, use the trampoline to get deep into it, and then just lay down the damage, which I think is going to work out so well for them with the Sorrow Blade double tornado trigger comp. It makes use of the little time that Quartervore on this Churnwalker is able to stun them out, but well executed overall, and I'm just waiting to see how Impunity go into this next fight, or if Nebulae are able to turn it around. That might have been a bit of an accident by Aaron Gudai. I was thinking Nebulae could just consider going for the Kraken, but they don't have the burst just yet. And here comes Impunity looking for a fight. There's going to be the hook onto Delphire, keeping Quartervore in there alone, but he's going to use the Crucible to block himself out of there, thinking that it's important enough that he gets out of that. However, Delphire with the Echo has another gauntlet available, just looking for the right moment to use it. They're going to boots away initially. Iron Gudai gets hooked, gets tormented again, pulled back, and Iron Gudai just going to go in with the Termination Pro. Quartervore already low, but look at DefQ on the backline, picking up the double kill onto the Arden and the Alpha. Meanwhile, Blue City going to chase down the Scarf for the Ace, and Impunity more than likely going to get a turret and a Kraken out of this one.
Yep, very, very good use of Trespass to just stop Delphire from the ultimate as well. Delphire came down with the gauntlet, Trespass was just boom, no more ultimate for that, Arden. And Impunity scored an ace for themselves with DevQ picking up 2 kills. So yes, although I did mention that DevQ hasn't quite been a part of the fight, but now it's definitely showing as to how, a CP Saw do work into the team comp, and how a Churn Walker is just there to just help out the CCs and the pools as well, that will just be so irritating to go up against. And Blue City, just the amount of damage coming through from this battle have got the Sorrow Blade, Double Tornado Trigger probably building into the Tyrant's moniker at this point in time. But DevQ, one very unique item pickup on the CP Saw would be that of Alternating Current. We don't generally see that on a CP Saw because it is quite frowned upon. It is not quite a good CP item, unless of course you're a Vox, you need an extra attack speed. But I think like Minimizer actually said, maybe it's for the ultimate, and that's the only thing I can think it's for, right? Your Met Cannon, but yeah, it's only for your Met Cannon as well, and there's really nothing much that it can be used for.
Well, Iron Gudai trying to jump on that burst down so low. There's going to be pressing fire, and actually a misplay from Portable pulling Iron Gudai out of there, but it doesn't matter because they're going to clean up. Hell gain the double kill, looking for the triple onto Iron Gudai, going to get it, gets the turret, gets the ace, and they're going to get the game for the side of Impunity, pushing him with that Kraken. Hell even getting the crystal weapon power pedal very strong, alongside that of the DevQ CP Saw build, which was, as you mentioned, quite unique in this case, where usually we'd look to see the Shatter Glass, and why it's probably more frowned upon because a lot of the CP Saw play usually being around that the Shank and maybe more of a troll or fun. In this case, DevQ playing it seriously, going for that Alternating Current, I think really did help out with how quickly he could put out the damage on that Mag Cannon, and just overall, I think a good build alongside the Dragon's Eye, because as he's putting out that damage with the Mag Cannon, it's getting ramped up as well. So it worked out quite well. We saw that one fight where he was able to pick up a double kill, just sitting up in that top rush, shooting down onto those who were stunned up in the trespass. And yeah, good comp coming out from Impunity. We're probably going to look over to seeing some bans being focused, some definite focus bans coming out from Nebulae onto that Impunity comp, whether that might be the Churnwalker, the Saw, or even the Pedal. I think Saw, Churnwalker, in my opinion, more viable, and a good point that Minimai brought up was that Echo on Quartervore they picked up for the Churnwalker to really pull them back with the Torment twice. So with that, I will like to hear from Mini Miter himself and any extra thoughts he had about that game.
Thank you for that. I requested Jewel and Luxuria. What a game! That was certainly not what Luxuria was expecting when he said it would be meta comps from both these teams. CP Saw, Churnwalker, Weapon Petal is not quite what I'd call the meta at the moment. And I agree that something's most likely going to be banned away from them, be it the Churnwalker, the Saw, or the Petal. And even though it feels like Saw and Churnwalker were the things that needed to be banned, Petal got like 7 kills, Saw got 2, and Churnwalker obviously didn't steal any away. So was it actually the Weapon Petal that was too strong for Nebulae to face against? Because what it looked to me, whenever Nebulae were trying to do a team fight, is they were so far away, they were too scared to go anywhere near that Churnwalker because they were afraid of him chaining them up and scaling that damage across, that Petal was free to just wait for Scarf to Spitfire, jump in, burst someone down, get 5 kills for free pretty much. His first 5 kills, Churnwalker didn't really do anything. Then Nebulae had to change their playstyle. They had to try and be much more aggressive, in which case Saw was good, Churnwalker did well. That Torment, the Echo on the Torment, was so mentally good. It's like, it's in between a Polite Company, Forced Accord and a Polite Company. It's between that in terms of how far it pulls you back. And so that's a really strong ability. And as long as you don't do it as a troll, as Churnwalker, it's very annoying if you pull something away from a Winter Spire, from a Prime Directive, from a Suppressing Fire. It's very similar to how Lance's Githian Wall works. You can pull someone away from something you don't want to, which isn't the best idea. But yeah, I really think Weapon Battle was a big problem in that game, and so that's definitely a possibility to be banned away in this game.
Yep, and with that, both teams are ready for the second draft, so we will see whether that Pedal gets banned out or it could go focused elsewhere like the Saw pickup. And here we go, jumping right in. This time we have the side of Nebulae on I believe, and that would be Impunity on the red team. So Nebulae with this first ban, more than likely going to be targeted rather than just your usual meta bans. But the question is on who. That pedal, you're right, doing so much work, but no, they stick to the meta. They don't want to let Rhyme go through. Perhaps they don't want to pick it up themselves in a first pick position, so wouldn't want to let it go through over to the red side, which we know has a lot more option to do so. And there's some fairly mad bans, so with that, do you
Can
think
Nebulae flip the meta? Can Nebulae pick Germwalker? Can they do it? Can they do it for themselves?
No.
Can they do it? I think that's smart. You know it's good. They first picked it on A side. There was no reason for them not to first pick it on B side. I think I hope Nebulae do it. I hope they decide, okay, let's just see how good we can play Germwalker. He was pretty annoying to play against, so let's try it. Because as you said, they've let through all of the picks, but I think Arden is obviously the safe captain, but I think Nebulae are putting themselves in a bad position if they just go for that meta Arden pick.
Well, they are going to go for the meta. They went meta bans, they go for meta picks, and it wasn't my question. I was thinking, like, are they going to just allow Impunity to do the same? But in your eyes, you saw, well, why don't the side of Nebulae go for the Germwalker pick? I feel like it's just something that hasn't been practiced too much in a lot of team comps. But Impunity, they're surely going to do it again as they pick him up first pick spot. They don't want him to get banned out at all. So now the question is what we'll see. We'll see the same bans coming out from the side of, at least in the fact of the Taka ban and Rhyme already being banned out. So very similar bans so far. Previous would end in a Reza ban coming out from the side of Nebulae, which is a good ban when you want to ban it away from a team comp like the Churnwalker saw. And you could imagine if Reza were there to finish off that comp, the trespass into Neverform Detonator would just be disgusting.
Yeah, petal ban makes sense. They had to deny something away. They couldn't let through the same comp. They couldn't let through the weapon petal. As I said, weapon petal got all the kills pretty much. So maybe they thought that that was the problem, not Churn clearly. And I think Impunity really think Churnwalker is countered by Taka. Smart for them to ban it away if that's what they think. If they're comfortable playing it, and that is a Reza pick.
Mini, I know how much you love how much you love Reza. I was gonna say
Reza,
how much you love Mini, but I'm not sure if you love yourself that much. But we do see the Reza.
I'm not Kanye West, no.
Well, we see the Reza pick up, and Batiste in response to that is good. But what I'm worried about is they're going to pick up a Saw, and this time go weapon power Saw Reza, and they're gonna have such a strong early game there that they should be able to go into the mid game fairly well. But do you think they're going to finish off with that sword? Do they have the confidence, or they? No,
yes, I do.
Have they been too counted out? And they don't feel counted out at all by the Batiste. I think Batiste, if he lands for ordained onto that of Saw, it's not going to be of much use. Saw not really wanting to go anywhere. But if he's able to land it onto the Reza, it kind of counters Reza out a fair bit, as he's not able to continue with the chase that he's used to.
Yeah, one thing Reza does really well against Arden is that he can use his ultimate Netherform Detonator out of the gauntlet. You only get stunned by the gauntlet if you cross the wall. Reza goes invisible. He basically blinks outside the wall, same as Idris can jump past it. Whereas he cannot use any abilities to get out of Ordained. If you leave the area, under any definition of leaving the area, you're going to get stunned. So he will be stunned if he tries to use Netherform Detonator out of Ordained. So that is really what Batiste has to do. He has to stop Reza from jumping around, diving onto Vox, and this is going to be a weapon swarm. Most likely, we might see double CP. It would work quite well. It would be forcing them to go to late game as opposed to trying to push an early game advantage with Reza. Reza's great early game. I'd go see weapon saw, try and push that further, and it can work really well. So I'm interested to see what they're going to decide to go with. I think Saw does really well against Vox, quite well against Batiste, but not fantastic, because if Batiste does not ordained Reza, but does ordained Saw at the right time, you can stop him from roadie run and running away. Because that's one thing Weapon Saw can do, is if he realises he's in a bad position, gets the roadie run off on a minion or something, runs over a wall, runs away from you, and then you don't secure the kill. So that could be a real problem if Batiste managed to get the ordained at the right time.
Yeah, well, I do think this is what Nebulae were trying to stop from happening the first time, and it is more Impunity in that initial match deciding to go for CP Saw and Weapon Pedal was a bit more improvising, and this could have been the comp they were looking for. So we'll have to see how the side of Nebulae are really able to implement this and just execute it overall. But before we go over to Luxuria, I'd like to hear your final thoughts on which team you're seeing as the winning team for this matchup.
I think it has to be Impunity. I think they've got their comfort pick on Churnwalker. Nebulae didn't want to play against Reza, and they are, so I'm going to go Impunity. But now we have loaded into the Halcyon Fold, so I request Jill and Luxuria, take it away.
Hello, hello. Wow, that is it's the comp that the characters, or me and I at least, really want to see. It is Reza, Chan, and So. We've been at it for weeks now, and we finally do see it coming through from Impunity. So I was talking to Impunity's leader, and they are hoping to end this game really quickly, especially with the Saw, the weapon Saw pickup, and with the Reza as well, that can just bully the early game.
Yeah, and I do like that on the side of for Nebulae, it's once again we see the answer to Saw, at least is trying to just hope you get through to that late game. Blue City getting caught out in an early ordained, waits it out, able to dash out of there, but Def Q with full stacks, not afraid, is going to stand in the front line, continue to put down the auto attacks at very fast speed, and a lot of teams like to go the minion candy to just try and make it that much harder for the Saw in the early game to burst these minions down, so it's not as quick, gives their own laner a bit of a chance in those situations. But what I was talking about before is Nebulae's team comp as a whole. They are looking for, if they can get past this early game, they have an opportunity available to them to really bring it back in the late game. Reza falls off, weapon power Saw I guess falls off a bit, and the Vox and Batiste will just scale up really well. So looking at that, Nebulae do have a chance, and Impunity have kind of put all their eggs in the early game basket.
Yep, as long as this Reza, as long as Iron Grew down, this Reza do not go for the Southeast Asia meta build that we've been seeing quite a lot at this point in time, they would probably have got an easier early game, and it would not play into the win conditions of Impunity. So that is one thing maybe Nebulae has to reconsider, because a lot of times what I'm afraid coming up from Nebulae would be them just playing very safely and trying to keep trophies alive. Thus Iron Gudai will pick up the clockwork into that Echo first, just trying to peel for trophies. That wouldn't win you any games against this particular comp coming through from the side of Impunity.
Well, we do see I Angry You Die going for that of, it looks like he could be building towards that possible clockwork that you mentioned, so it might not work out and they might just play into Impunity's hands, but going up against that of Blue City on the Reza, and he's going to find that the early game will be a bit tough. More so they'll be focusing that lane and trying to jump onto trophies, so it's up to Ironview to really peel for that box. So I don't think it's such a bad item in my opinion, as it's going to mean Ordained is up a lot quicker for him, and they're just really going to focus on keeping Vox alive, I believe, for the side of Nebulae.
Yep, but
taking the early turret, but gets taken down for first blood by Ironview Die up in that lane, who managed to land Ordained, leaving Saw with nowhere to leave, but is fairly committed to taking the turret with him. But Court of War now taking a fair beating. Blue City has made his way up to lane, but Court of War not able to take use of the futility of life with all of those enemies chained, as Blue City not able to find the damage output right now.
Yep, and Blue City, I mean, Batiste is a very good pickup coming through from the side of Nebulae, only because it stops Saw and the likes of Reza in their tracks, and they just cannot go out there, put down the damage that's quite needed. I'm not sure if Netherform Detonator, when used by Blue City, will just go past the perimeters, and whether or not it stuns Reza out, it's something that I've yet to see. I do not quite know. I've quite tested that yet, but it would hurt the side of Impunity if that Ordain actually do hurt and do stun Reza out when he goes into Netherform Detonator. So that is something that I'm quite looking to see. But with the weapon sword, we saw it in the first game between between RNG and Brand Esports. They ran a very similar team comp, but they have got Arden for the speed boost. Now Quarter 4 on this Turnwalker don't really want that speed boost. Instead, he's going to bring everyone closer to him.
Yep, and we do see Blue City diving in onto that backline, trying to look for something. Quarterball not quite able to find the hooks right now. Is going to go up into that front line, but needs to be careful. Does get the Torment off, pulling Iron Die back, but they're not able to get the kill just yet. And what I'd like to see again is Quarterball going for that Echo more so into late to work on getting the Torment off twice and just making sure they cannot escape at all. But there's the Fearsome Shade. Fountain having to be used for the side of Impunity. Blue Sea again dived on, but he's going to be able to pick up the kill onto Batiste, who has pulled back with that Torment. Just such a good ability, being able to reposition the enemy. But there's going to be the wait for it, silencing out Blue City. He's still looking for some poke onto trophies, but needs to be careful to not get too confident. Really just buying time for DefQ to work on that second turret as he takes it down with ease.
Yep, he does. 6 minutes in now. DefQ sitting at 2 turrets, or on the side of Impunity sitting at 2 turrets for themselves. DefQ now on the run. Angry Die will not be able to catch up to him. And Quarter 4, I won't say it's kind of hit and miss with those chains, but whenever he does land those chains, the damage distributed to the entirety of Nebulae is just immense and tremendous, and it's quite hard to deal with.
Yep, and there's going to be the Torment pulling back the whole team, but they are going to be able to escape out of that one. And that's actually quicker than we saw with the previous Weapon Power Sword match. I forgot which matchup it was. I think Renegades played it, and Renegades up against Brand Esports played it in that first matchup, and they took the turret, the second turret at 6 minutes 30, but Impunity here just doing it at 6 minutes in, and you've really got to give it credit to Blue City. At first I was wondering, why is he really just trying to go for the poke onto trophies, but it's more so trying to bait them in and buy the time for DefQ. So Impunity, very smart plays there, and now they have that control over the map and more so the game. As we see, there's not too much of a gold lead. It's about 2k in favor of Impunity, seeing it 17k up to 14.3, but kills are even as of now, so no real team fights breaking down, and just Saw pushing this lane as Saw should be doing. Torment gonna pull Iron Die back, and Blue City just going to land the Scorcher over the wall into the Troublemaker, picking up the kill. Neverform DNA has popped, and he's looking for something more, but Truppies has that Vanguard on him, going to be safe for now. And the side of Impunity turning their attention towards possibly that gold mine.
Yep, they will be going for this gold mine. Volks is still up, relatively healthy. Will try to come defend or steal against this gold mine, but Blue City will stand guard, trying to just fan them off. The gold mine will go over to the side of Impunity.
Yep, yeah, Dalfire going in with the Gauntlet. Maybe a bit of a misplay there as they get caught up in the pass. Are going to go down, but it's a trade out as Saw going down for that of the Arden. So actually a win for the side of Nebulae, as they now have the opportunity to push the lane if they choose to, but instead Truffy's looking for more, able to pick up a kill onto Quarterball as well, and now could look for the Crystal Sentry. They don't really need it, they don't have the energy or the confidence right now, and they're just gonna have to back out.
Yep, 8 minutes in, and I constantly just chant out the timing right now, only because of the confidence I received from the side of Impunity with their team comp. They want to try to end the game as soon as possible, but we constantly see a certain trend coming through for anyone or any team that picks out the Soul. It's that the third tier turret is just so difficult to push down.
Yep, it is indeed, but Impunity might be able to make it happen as Iron Die going very then not going to be the one to catch him out, but Quartervore picking up overall kill. And look at this, Blue City on that backline doing work, gets the double kill, secures the ace for them all. I believe it's basically the unofficial triple that Neverform Detonator did do a fair bit, although Quartervore was able to get the kill credit. And now Impunity, as you said, that Tear Free turret is looking tasty to them, and they are going to try push onto it. So maybe a bit of Caster's Curse. However, we do see the Ace's aced up minion wave getting burnt down fairly quickly from the side of Nebulae.
I mean, the entirety of Nebulae, they clear minion waves really quickly. A ton of AoEs coming out from Angry on that Batiste, and the Resonance Bouncers definitely will be able to take out a aced minion wave without the minion candy relatively quickly. But once again, we do see that Echo build on quarter 4, and as just now, right? So you land those hook and chains, and then use Torment. And if anybody tries to run away, you echo that, and you go like, no, you don't run away. You come back here, and that is basically what the entirety of Impunity really wants to get at. And maybe the Trespass will just only be used to just stop Arden's Gauntlet. If not, then stop any important ultimates that can be coming out that quarter 4 can catch out. But now, once again, the entirety of Nebulae trying to push the first tier turret of Impunity. Whether or not they will succeed, so
there's going to be the Ordained onto Quartervore, but now it's not up to stop Blue City. The Gauntlet is, however, Fearsome Shade used to push back half the team. Echo on it as well to just push back about Blue City. He does get caught out in the Ordained for a second, but no one taking care of Soy. Goes in for the shank, gets the execution, but now the rest of Impunity need to be careful as Nebulae still have their damage dealers up and they're looking fairly low at the moment. There's no fountain for the side of Impunity right now, so not too sure why Quartervore would be pulling them closer. We're going to see that Def Q's there backing, but I don't know if they're going to be able to stop it. Instead, Nebulae continuing to push down this turret, and the Fearsome Shade gets blocked out, but Reza, meanwhile, was able to heal up in the jungle. He's going to go into the backline, burst them down, and Blue City making the plays for his team, helping them come back into this one. And before Doubtfire could even get back to them, has reset the favor for Impunity.
Yep, tons of buzz coming through from Impunity, especially Blue City on that Braza. But would it be enough at all? Because DevQ has been finding it really difficult to just step up his movement speed. And I know he is sitting on a journey boots. He has got an extra movement speed, but when the Soul is spun up, he's just so very slow, and it's just so difficult to catch up onto Blue City when he's in the front line. Trying to just put down the burst, and the entirety of Nebulae is just making full use of that as well. We saw some very good hook and chains and into Torment coming out from Quartervore, but coming into this late game, or just creeping into this late game, it will be very difficult now. Although a lot of team fights have went in favor of Impunity, but whether or not it is enough at all for Impunity to push this out, because we know Batiste just really need the Shatter Glass right now, to put out any form of damage, because if Batiste does not have, then the side of Impunity might just win.
Doubtfire gonna jump in with the Gauntlet, but gets taken down instantly. Fearsome Shade put back in before it goes away, and there's going to be Blue City jumping in, and the Trespass locks up Vox. They're going to be able to pick up that kill there. Iron Gyudai going to be the next one to fall. Blue City just chasing them down, gets the kill, does get stunned out, but it doesn't really matter. So they get the ace. They're going to be able to get the Crystal Sentry and this Anchor Turret, and before Kraken is up, so now they're just looking for more of a gold lead, I'd say, for the side of Impunity, sitting at 34k, but we've now seen the rest of Impunity decide to push in. Blue City isn't with them. They need to be careful, however, as Iron Gyudai probably looking for Ordained onto that Saw, and he's going to land it, but Saw not running away at this point, just Iron Gyudai taking a lot of damage in return, and Fearsome Shade being used, a 35-second cooldown, so it will be up in time with the Gauntlet and the Sonic with the wait for it, so they will have their ultimates up soon for the possible next fight. We'll have to see whether Impunity take advantage of this or no. It looks like DefQ just going to back, and with Blue City still back at base, it wasn't too bad that Nebulae had used their ultimates to push away that of Impunity.
Yep, one thing I absolutely dislike coming through from Iron Gyudai is actually not even having the Shatter Glass at all. Instead, Iron Gyudai sold off the 2 initial crystal bit he got in the early game. That is firstly not economical. It doesn't help you with anything. It gives you 150 gold, and it's just not enough at all. And instead, just going for that pure expertise that I was talking about. Yes, it will work if Trophies, is well protected. But what is happening right now is once Trophies has to get in range of Saul's basic attack, and we are in range of Saul's basic attack, you're in range of Quatervor's pull as well. Quatervor's Lando's pull don't have to attack you directly. Attack your allies, and you just go down immediately.
Iron you die game pulled back in with the torment. Quatervor still has the trespass available. Does look like he'll need it. He could use it to secure the kill onto Doubtfire, and he is going to do just that. And securing the game for the side of Impunity is spun up Saw, pushing into this final turret of the side of Nebulae. Impunity going to take the second game without the need of Kraken. The earliest game we've seen today, 15 minutes 20 in, they take the crystal, and that's going to be GG. Well played. And Saw really just having a spotlight in the current meta, and especially for today's matches. It was crazy to see. I was a bit questionable with when you mentioned that it was hard for DefQ to get onto the target sometimes, whereas